Hello and welcome back. I had quite a lot of comments recently in some videos how to integrate seasons into a map, how to get a map seasons ready, and so on and so on. So what I want to do in this particular video is talk about one aspect of the seasons mod, which is the seasons mask, which was previously known as the snow mask. So it allows further layers of snow to be applied to the map and whatever else. So I've come to the Realism US modding website here, and I'm not going to read through this. There's loads and loads of information in here on what to do and how it all works and what it does to this and that and the rest of it. Like I said, all I'm going to be working with here today is just the actual seasons mask. So if you haven't already downloaded this, then just go to the download page here from the mod hub, Farming Simulator mod hub, and download it. This is version 1.100. Again, there's some information here on what buttons to press, shortcut keys and things like that, how it works. Now it will work straight out of the box, or a lot of the stuff will work if the map is using trees from FS17, I think specifically Goldcrest Valley map trees. Your trees will change colour, the leaves will fall off and all sorts of other things like that. If you're using trees from 15, they will not do anything at all, and any other modded trees, again, unless they've been specifically set up in a manner that will work with seasons, then they're not going to change because they're not the right type of tree. They haven't been set up correctly and all the rest of it. So, but it will work straight out of the box. You just won't have certain additional functions that will be available if you integrate parts of the actual mod into the map itself. So, okay, so once you've downloaded it, pop it into your mod folder, pretty straightforward. And then we need to come to this website, as I say. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over to the manual here, and you can read through all of this stuff in your own time. There's loads of information in here and what it does to all parts, crops, animals, all the rest of it. Again, I'm not going to get into any of that sort of stuff. I'm just going to be concentrating on the seasons mask. So we'll click down here. There's loads of information here that you can read through. Again, I'm not going to read every single word off of here, just pick parts out of it and skip the rest. One thing to note, as it says there, that your bales will not rot if you do not have a seasons mask. So by adding a seasons mask in, then you will get rotting bales, which is quite a nice feature. There's a file that we need to download, which is this one here. So just click on it, download it. I've already downloaded it, so I don't need to do that again. This particular setup I'm going to do today is working around a default sort of map structure, as it shows in just here, that this particular file needs to be put in your map01 folder. So this is often located in map folder, whatever that map may be called, and then maps, and then map01. If you've got a different path file name to this, then you will need to change the path file name when we get into the parts down here. But again, that's something that you'll need to work out. I'm not going to get into that because there's just too many variations to put into a video, depending on the map creator or map author, how they've set it up and whatever else. So this is just going to be working around a kind of default structure, as it says here, basically. So we need to add a density layer, and we need to bring over some parts to put in our map 01 to i3D. Some materials. We need to change our windrow foliage shader. We need to bring in our foliage layer, and then there's some other parts down here which we'll get to in a minute. So I've already gone ahead and copied these parts over. Now all I've done literally just highlight them and then copy them. Now one word of warning when you do bring them into your map01.i3D, because you're copying it from a website, it tends to screw things up a little bit. So as you paste it in, you may find that other file lines will then move and they will shift. So just be cautious when you paste stuff in. It may happen when I do it in a minute, and then we'll be able to see that, but then again it may not. So, but I've come across it a couple of times that as I've copied this stuff by just highlighting it and then Control-C to copy it, when I've then brought it into my map01.i3D and pasted it in, the line below has then shifted up. So then I have whatever the next line would be, file ID, etc., going across here. So you need to then realign it to the actual rest of the i3D, because otherwise it won't work, and you may find that your map either won't open in Giants Editor, or if it does, you'll be lucky, and when you get into game you'll have lots of problems. So just be a bit wary of that. But like I say, I've already copied these into a Notepad++ document, and I'm just going to take it from there, so I don't have to do this again. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So I'll just minimize that for now. So as you can see here, I've got the invisible mask diffuse on my desktop. I've just changed the map at random, just a smallish map. So we'll go ahead and come into our map01.i3D. Again, I'm working with Notepad++. So we can open this up, and as I say, I've already downloaded the parts. So I've got my file IDs at the top here, so I'm going to copy those in first. So I'm just literally going to highlight both of those lines, Control-C to copy it, come over. I'm going to create a new line at the top here and paste them in. And then what I'll do is I'll just tidy them up a little bit. Again, copying them from the website doesn't automatically align them, so you need to just have a bit of a play around there as well. So again, just checking our path file name here, just so it actually you understand where it is. So we've got map01 and then the actual mask. So if we go into our map, we've got maps and then map01, and this is where the that particular invisible mask is going to be put. So it's going to be put into there like so. So next thing we need to do then is copy over our material IDs. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight all of those and copy them, come back over, and then we will go down. What I'll do is I'll do a search for materials. I've done this many times, so it's in my drop down. Just do a search for materials twice, and it will bring you to the bottom of the materials section, which is where I like to put these parts, and we'll paste those in. Again, I like to just tidy the text up a little bit, bring it over using the tab key just to sort of shift it over so it kind of lines up a little bit better, like so. Okay, so now we've got that into there. Before we move on to the next part, I need to look for my Winrow foliage shader. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the Winrow part there. I'll bring up my search window. I'm going to come to the top of the page, and I'm just going to go find next. And what this will do is bring me down to my Winrow foliage shader.xml. I need to take this number from here, the 80, make a copy of that. I'm going to bring up my search window again and go to the bottom of my material section. And then in there where this text is, we need to overwrite that text with that particular shader ID. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can go back into our other part and we can bring over our foliage layer. So I'm just going to highlight all that, copy it, come back over, and I'm just going to scroll down, which is why I like to put everything at the bottom of the materials section, because it means I can just scroll down to my next part from there relatively easily. So we want to put this above our detail layer section just here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new line in there and then paste that in. And as you can see there, it's actually done exactly what I said it was going to do earlier on. It's brought the detail layer line, which was actually below this, up to and incorporated it into this line here. So we don't want that. So what I need to do there is just press enter on my keyboard and it will put it back where it was before. If you don't do that, it will cause a problem and then things won't run properly. Potentially Giants Editor won't even start up. It will just cause a problem, or it might say there's something missing, or when you get into game it will really cause some problems. So just be a bit wary of that, where that lower line, the line below it, as you paste in your parts, and it might happen for any part, your file IDs, your material IDs and your foliage layers. The line below jumps up, it shifts up a little bit. Don't know why it does it, just does, so just be wary of that. Okay, so now we've tidied all that up into there. I don't need to make any further changes in here for now, so I'm going to go ahead and save. I will keep that there. So we've added in our file IDs, we've added our material IDs, we've changed our custom Winrow shader ID as it explains just here. Again, you can read through these instructions. I'll put a link in the description to the actual site here. But I've just, like I said, I've skipped bits and I've just pulled out the information I need to do. I find that if I actually was to read all of this line by line, it would actually confuse me, let alone confuse you. so I'm doing it in my own way. Hopefully that's okay with you guys and you can understand what I'm getting at here. So as we come on down, we added in our foliage multi-layer, and there's no adjustments we need to make in it because it's all been set up with the correct material IDs and file IDs and all the rest of it, whatever else. Okay, so you can read through all of this stuff if you want to. Again, I'm not going to get into any of that stuff. Next part we need to do is work with our tip coal and our mask and everything else. So, because we need to make a seasons mask, but what we're going to do is we're going to create our seasons mask from our tip coal info layer.grle. So we need to use the GRLE converter from the GDN Giants Developer Network. I'll put a link in the description to their site as well. You do need to be a member. It's totally free. Just register and you can download the Giants editor, the GRLE converter, plus tutorials and all sorts of stuff from their site, and be part of the forum and all the rest of it. So it's worth doing it. If you've got any questions, they're great on the forums, in my experience. So, but you will potentially find the GRLE converter from other sources, Mod Hoster and places I think may have it, but I would recommend get it from the Giants Developer Network. You know you've got the latest version then. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to take the tip coal info layer.grle, so we need to find that, which is right here in our map01 folder. And what I need to do is make a PNG from that. So I've got my GRLE converter up on my desktop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to literally drag that over onto the convert.command and let go. This window will pop up and it then says saving to tipcoinfolayer.png, press any key to continue, which we will do. Don't need that anymore. So we can close that down. That's it. You don't need to use that too often, just the one time on this case. But what it does then say is we need to rename the tipcoinfolayer.png to seasons_mask.png. So if I click on that one there, we're going to rename this to seasons_mask. And we'll just make sure that we did actually spell that right. Seasons_mask. Done. That's it. Don't need to do anything further there. Okay, so going back to the instructions here, we'll just continue on down, reading through these, skipping parts and just picking out the parts that I think are relevant for the video at least. Okay, so now it's saying to test it all out by opening up Giants Editor and then painting down our snow mask and seeing what's what. So that's what we will do. We've added all of our lines into our map01.i3d, which I've now saved and closed down. We've got our seasons_mask.png in our map01 folder. We've brought over the invisible mask diffuse.dds again in our map01 folder. So what we're going to do now then is open up the map in Giants Editor. I'm using 7.1.0, the latest version as far as I know. Okay, so all I've done here is I've opened up Giants Editor, and what I'm going to do is I'm just literally going to click save and then save the map. I've not moved the map, moved the cursor, I've not moved around on the map anywhere, I've not put down any textures or whatever else. All I've done is open Giants Editor, click save, that's it, that's all you need to do. And double check there's no errors in your console, just to make sure that everything's loaded in correctly. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to close down Giants Editor. I'm going to go back into my map01 folder, and what we will have here is we created our seasons_mask.png, but by opening Giants Editor and then saving the Giants Editor session, we've now converted that PNG. Giants Editor has created our seasons_mask.gdm for us. So all I need to do now is highlight the seasons_mask.png and delete it. We no longer require it because it's now been replaced by our GDM, which is what we actually needed. But we need the PNG for Giants Editor to load up that density file and then create our GDM for us. Okay, so we're going to open up the Giants Editor session once again. So now that we've opened the Giants Editor session again, I'm going to close down the User Attributes window. Then I'm going to go Window, Terrain Editing. Again, it's always worth just checking your console. I always do this, just force of habit. Just every time I open Giants Editor, look in the console and make sure there are no errors, because if you open the console and this is full of errors, then everything you do is just going to be a waste of time, because whatever changes you make will be then potentially overwritten later on, because you'll have to fix all these errors and you may have to take 20 steps backwards to take 1 step forwards. So if there are errors in here, fix those first before you continue with anything else you're going to do on your map. Okay, so now we've got our terrain editor window open, I'm going to scroll down here to my foliage layer painting section. And if we look at the foliage layer here, I'm going to open that up, and if I've put everything in the right places, we will now have this SS snow mask. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. We only have the one foliage channel, can't click anything else there, which is fine. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to have a look around. So I want to show you this because it's not important, but it's going to save you time potentially. If we click on the terrain foliage paint mode, and then I actually make my brush a bit bigger and I start to paint down on the road here, you can see that, but as I zoom out it then gets a little bit harder to see, so it makes it a little bit difficult to do large areas in one sort of foul swoop because you can't see it when you zoom out. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to, we may as well just save it there, so I don't have to do that little bit again. I will probably go over it a little bit again. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close down the giant setup, but I just want to show you that so you can see what I mean, the differences. And I'm going to go back into my Notepad++ session for the map01.i3d. Going back to the bottom of the materials section, if we scroll down, come to our SS snow mask. If we come over here, we have this view distance of 80. Add another 0 on the end, so it's now a view distance of 800. And we're going to go ahead and save. We'll close that down, minimize that. We'll go back into the giant editor session here again. And with that little strip that I've painted down, you'll now be able to see the difference when I zoom out, how much further I can zoom out and still see it. So now if I zoom out, I can still see it, still see it, still see it. So you can get a lot further away and still see that snow mask on the ground, whereas before we were only getting to, well, not even that high, maybe that high, and it was disappearing. You'll also notice there are areas that are already covered in the snow mask, and this is because we used the tipcoal info layer.grle we converted that into our seasons mask.gdm, so it's using the same data from that tipcoal info layer in our seasons mask. So certain areas on the map that had a tipcoal painted onto them are now using that as our seasons mask. So certain areas we don't need to paint because it's already been done with our tipcoal info layer, so that's quite nice. By using that density file, we're saving ourselves a little bit of time. So now, basically, with our view distance at 800, makes it a little bit easier. Obviously, if you zoom right out, then parts of the map are going to become distorted because there is a certain view distance within Giant Editor anyway. So, you know, you'll still need to be in a little bit, but you can close down some of your windows, make your screen a little bit bigger anyway. You know, minimize these sorts of things, make your screen as big as you feel you need to. If you have a second or third monitor or whatever else, these detach, so you can drag them over to a different monitor, so you can have all your windows open but just not in the same on the same screen and whatever else. Up to you. If you only have the one, then close down what you're not using, just keep open what you need and then go from there. But at the end of the day, all you're going to be doing here is just selecting your snow mask, turning on your terrain foliage paint mode, and then you can close down everything because that's all you're going to need. Everything else you can do with your mouse wheel by changing your brush size and whatever else. So now it's literally just a case of finding the right sort of spot on your map and then just painting down. Now I would say, for me, it's not about being perfect in every way. Now you don't want to obviously get it on your fields and stuff like that, but it's, well, unless you do, you may want to, but this is a kind of a personal thing really. You're going to put it down where you want to put it down for your map. I particularly hate it when I play on maps with Seasons Mask or Seasons Mod and things like silage bunkers and manure heaps and things like that, the actual clamps and the bits and pieces, they haven't had the Seasons Mask integrated into them, and then when you actually get silage in them, and chaff and whatever else, it then always tends to snow at that particular point, and you're not sure whether you're picking up snow or silage half the time. So I tend to always put my silage clamps, I always put the mask over them so that I know that I'm never going to get snow in them. It's just a personal thing, I prefer that way, but you may feel that that's not realistic, so you might want to go a different direction. It's going to be a very personal thing. But for me, I would say it's not about being perfect, just personal. However, whatever works for you. I just tend to put it down as long as it covers the majority of the road. If it goes over a little bit, doesn't really matter. You might want to be a little bit more sort of, so you have a slightly smaller brush, so only the middle of the road is clear, the outer parts of the road aren't, whatever. Again, it's going to be a very personal thing on what you want it to get, what you want to get out of it, and what you want, where you want the snow to actually show up, and all the rest of it. So I'm not going to do a massive amount here on the camera. I'm just going to very quickly go around here, and then what I'll do is I'll do the majority of it off screen sort of thing. I'll hit stop and fill all these areas in and whatever else, and then we'll go from there. I will do as much as I can, because otherwise when we get into game there's only going to be certain areas that won't have the snow on it and the rest will be covered, so it'll be a bit sort of pointless. Now also, one thing you'll notice here is this is really sort of a bright green, whereas this is really difficult to see, and that's because the terrain underneath the road is what you're actually painting this onto. You're not painting it onto the road, you're painting it onto the terrain that's under the road. So the terrain that's underneath this particular stretch of road is lower than the road section itself. I don't know if I can show that by going underneath. Might be able to, not really. But if you actually grabbed hold of that road section and lifted it up, chances are you would see there's a big hole underneath it. So that's why you're getting areas which are brighter in some places and dark and not so bright in others, because it's actually painting the mask onto the ground, the terrain itself, not on the object. Okay, so we'll continue on round here a little bit. What I'll do is I'll hit stop now, or in a minute or two, and then I'll continue on this, and we'll come back when I'm done. So there, see you then. Okay, so I've painted down my seasons mask on all of the major roads on the map. Then small narrow roads that lead off into different areas, into the forestry and whatever else. I've left them with no seasons mask on. You could role play it that the main roads are salted and whatever else, snow ploughed, but the minor roads not so much. Again, a personal sort of thing where you want to put the snow down or not put the snow down or whatever else. So there's a best practices piece on the page here on the website, which I just want to show you, where it says, so where should you prevent snow from falling? So where you put a snow mask, you will get no snow. If there's no snow mask, you get snow. So it's basically saying anywhere there is a tip coal, so see previous steps, because we use the tip coal GRLE to create our seasons mask, then wherever the tip coal was put, we'll get a seasons mask basically. So that's what that's referring to. Some maps I've played on have got no tip coals on them at all, even though it's got a substitute tip coal.grle, tip coal info layer. There is actually no tip coal painted on the map itself. One has just been created by Giants Editor because it requires one, if you like. So if you're using that to create your seasons mask, then obviously you're going to get nothing. So you would need to potentially set up a tip coal info layer. If you're creating a map, then it's a little bit different. Chances are you're going to create your own tip coal with your seasons mask or whatever else. So just be, trying to make you aware that just because you're using the tip coal info layer and what I've explained doesn't necessarily mean automatically half the map is already going to be done for you when you create your seasons mask, because depending on what map you're going to be potentially playing around with, if you're editing a map for your own personal usage, because it doesn't come with seasons on it, then just don't take it for granted that you're suddenly going to get half your map filled in for you. You may need to do it yourself anyway. So anywhere inside buildings, now again, this is only buildings that you can actually enter. If it's just a static object on the map that you can't actually walk into or see into or whatever else, then you don't have to go around the entire map putting a snow mask or seasons mask, I should say, on every single building in the map. Only buildings that you can go inside. Inside lakes, this again may be possibly handled by the tip coal. So goes back to what I said earlier on with so anything to do with animal troughs. So wherever there are animal troughs, then you need to fill those in with a seasons mask to stop snow falling into them. Again, I would add on to the bottom of that, like I said earlier on, anywhere that there's a manure heap, potentially, or a silage pit, or clamp, whatever you want to call it. Things like that, again, a personal thing, wherever you don't want the snow to fall or show up on the ground, paint a seasons mask on it. And then where you should not put a seasons mask, or however you want to interpret what they're saying there, anywhere to do with fields and animal fields. And then not paint where you put placeables. These are automatically handled by Seasons Mod. So theoretically, you can put your Seasons mask down, and then when a placeable is put down on the map, it knows it's a placeable. It will then overwrite that Seasons mask. So that's my interpretation of that. I've not tested it, so you would need to do that. But chances are you put your Seasons mask down on a map. If it's a map you're creating to share with others, how do you know, or you can't tell where somebody's going to put a placeable down. So again, theoretically, I'm reading that you can paint your Seasons mask down wherever you want to put it on the map, and then the actual Seasons mod will handle it automatically. It will then overwrite the Seasons mask to allow the actual mod to work around the Seasons mask that's on the map. That's my interpretation of that. So yeah, test the mask. So basically now it's saying to go in a game, use the actual console command shortcut SS add snow. Must be spelt in that way with uppercase, lowercase, again to my understanding. We'll test it out in a minute. Do it as many times as you need to and see if you get snow show up and how many layers. So you should have a maximum of 3, I believe, with the Seasons mask put on the map. And then, so without Seasons active, you'll see an ugly green material just like in the editor. So the idea is that when you put your map into your mod folder and you run it in game, you don't want to see that ugly green material if you're not running Seasons, because again, potentially if you're going to be creating a map to share with other people, they may not want to use Seasons mod. So if you don't deactivate that part of it, then, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, then they're going to drive around the map with this ugly green material like this showing up all the time in game. So we don't want that. So we need to have a play around with that. So okay, so there's some parts here that it basically explains about how to change the view distance, like we did earlier on, changing it from 80 to 800, so we can see it a little bit better in the actual Giants editor session from a greater distance away, and makes it a little bit easier to actually paint down to the map and whatever else. So what it's saying that if we're not running a map with Seasons mod in it, then what we need to do is make that invisible, and we do that by changing the view distance of the SS Snow Mask to 0. So I'm going to change that from 800, what I've got it set at the moment, to 0, and then it will no longer show up either in the editor or in game. There are some other parts which you can do, which basically then you change some of the parts. So if you want to clean up the map code a bit, you can replace the material ID of the SS Snow Mask with the material ID of the SS Reserved 1 layer. Then you can also remove the Seasons Mask, map material and invisible mask, diffuse file and file reference. But you will then need to re-add them again if you want to make any editing. So only do this once you're ready to publish and export the map for whatever reason. Personally, I wouldn't bother with any of this. It's not something I would do. It's just, again, that's a personal thing. Potentially, I would want to edit the map again in the future. and it doesn't really, you know, the sizes of the files and everything else are going to make no relevance to the performance of the map. So I would not do this part. It just makes it more complicated than it needs to be. Again, that's going to be on any map author, creator, whatever else, if they want to go down that road and start removing stuff and whatever else. But if the map then needed to be edited because for whatever reason something wasn't, you know, wasn't right or whatever else, if they needed to edit the seasons mask to then make version 1.2 or whatever, they would have to add it all back in again to make those changes. So I would just not bother with that part. I would just go into your actual SS Snow Mask, which again I'll show you that a little bit, change it back to 0 and you'll be fine. We'll get to that in a minute. There are some other parts about wrong size density files, stuff like that. We've created our own density file. We don't need to really get into too much of that stuff. Yeah, don't need to worry about any of that stuff there. That's for previous versions. And this is where I got the information to make the view distance up to 800 in our tips and tricks down the bottom here. So pretty straightforward there. I don't need that anymore. I'm going to close that down. Okay, so I've done all of the major roads, like I said here. There's a couple of areas on this particular map that I'm just going to finish up with here. And that is the actual little ponds here, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to go back into here, and I tend to just go out to the edges best you can. Might need to lower down your water plane, so select your water plane in your scenograph and then lower it down slightly if you can't see it through the water, you know, that you can't see it through the water or whatever else, if it's a little bit too foggy to see, depending on the depth of the train underneath it. But you know, that's not too bad, you can see that pretty clearly. So I'm just going to do that one there like so, and then I'll kind of come over to the wood yard here, and I'll do this one as well. Just come up to the edges a little bit. And make sure it's all filled in. Make your brush a bit bigger if you need to, a bit smaller, whatever, to get into the spaces. Okay, so we've now done that one, and again, like I said before, I would just do my silage clamps personal thing again. So, and again, I always say with this sort of thing, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, it's very little in real life that's perfect. So just whack it down anywhere. You know, as long as it's not going to interfere with the operation of anything else, it's not really too much of an issue, you know. So again, inside buildings, I'm not going to do the entire map. I'm just going to do areas that just to show you the basics kind of thing. So yeah, so anything underneath, you know, undercover or whatever else. And if I was going to be storing bales, for example, in here with the seasons mask now on the map, bales will rot, as I showed earlier on. So we need to have areas undercover with the seasons mask so we can put our bales away and know that they're not going to rot. So that's that. And again, this one over here, so very quickly I'll just do this. Like so. And then, you know, other areas like, I don't know, if I'm assuming this is a silage clamp by looks of things, so again in that one there like so. And then in your animal areas and whatever else, so again I'm not going to, so anywhere in here you would want to do it for your animals and all the rest of it, so and whatever else. Anywhere you don't want the snow to fall or potentially land on the ground or whatever else, show up on the ground, then put your snow mask. Okay, I think that's enough. So now that you've done that, we go ahead and save the map. So we've gone ahead and saved the map. I've brought up all my windows again, just so they're there when I open Giants Editor again. So we've gone ahead and saved, and we can now shut this down. We don't need to be in here anymore, at least for now. So I'm going to go and shut that down. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to open up the map01.i3d in Notepad++ again. We'll go down to the bottom of our materials section with our search, We're going to come down to our SS snow mask, and we're going to change our view distance to 0. Go ahead and save that. If I now open up Giants Editor again, so open the map up in Giants Editor again, and what we'll see now is that the actual seasons mask will no longer show up because I've set that view distance to 0. No matter how close I get to where it was painted down on the actual fields, on the roads and everything, it won't show up because we've set that view distance to 0. And this will be the same in game, so when you get into game, even if you're not running the seasons mod, then you won't be able to see the green ugliness all over the map everywhere because it's got a view distance of 0. So that works just as well than removing all those other files and changing IDs and all the rest of it. I definitely wouldn't go down that road, but again, that's just me. So okay, so we've made our changes now. We've put our view distance to 0 and everything else. So the next thing then would be to go into game. Don't need to save that. So we need to go into game then and actually test all of this out and make sure that the actual seasons mask does work, so we do actually get our 3 layers of snow. So that's what we're going to do now. Right, so we've come into game and I've literally just started up, and it's got our pop-up saying that spring is here and all the rest of it. So if we click OK, you can see that this map obviously has the right trees because there's no leaves on some of them and all the rest of it. And whatever else, we have our seasons information in our top right hand corner, and I can go Alt F to bring up my weather, Alt S to bring up my growth page with this particular map's just got standard fruit types on it, no extras, and all the rest of it. Fantastic. So what we will do is, I'm going to speed up time a little bit, and you saw the snow coming down. I just wanted to get it into daytime here a little bit so we can actually see what's going on. Now, what do I want to do here? Let's just do this. I just want to check my volume a minute because I think I actually turned this down. No, it's not too bad. We'll leave it like that. That'll be fine. So let's open up the doors here so we can get out. And we'll then jump into the tractor here. Bring this out. I forgot about that. I normally have drive control in, which has the little glow plug icon in the bottom right hand corner, but I haven't got the mod in at the moment because all I've got in here is the fast forward mod, the map, and the seasons mod. That's all I've got mod wise in this particular mods folder. And seasons will actually automatically set it, so you have to start and stop your tractors and tractors and machinery manually, and I always forget that. But normally I have that little glow plug icon, which is a good telltale, but I don't have drive control installed, so I completely forgot about it. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll just switch that off for now because I don't want that running all the time in the background. You can see it's a clear day and all the rest of it, but that's fine because I'm going to bring up my console commands here, and you can see there are no errors in here or whatever else. That's great, and it tells you there that the first time growth reset, and it only happens once in a new save game. That's fine, all the rest of it. So we know the growth manager is working with a part of seasons. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go SS, add snow, and we'll press enter. And then what this will do, it will apply the first layer of snow, irregardless of what time of the year it is. If it's going to work, should do in a minute. It will put down a layer of snow for us so we can actually see if the snow mask is working. So actually going to do something. Should do something in a minute, hopefully. Pretty sure I did it right. Try it again. SS, add snow. No, not going to work for me. Awesome. Oh, there we go. Did work. Oh, Christ, that took some time. Normally that's really quick, it comes in really quick, but for whatever reason that took a lot of time to get in there. But anyway, irregardless of how long it takes, it's there. So as you can see, come out onto the main road here, one of the main roads, we've got no snow on it, because that's where I put a seasons mask down. Everywhere else we've got snow, so it does work. It just seems to take its sweet time. I don't know why. In the past it's always come down or shown up really quickly, but anyway, irregardless. So we can do that again as many times as we want. I think you get 3 layers of snow as part of the snow mask setup. So if we go again with this, I don't know how many layers it's actually put down now, because I've done this twice. This may be the 3rd layer, but there we go. We saw it come through a bit quicker that time. So we'll do it one more time just to actually see if we have got the full amount. Nope, there's another one. Anyway, now that we've got our snow on the ground, I can drive around and you can see we actually get tyre tracks in the snow. You don't get that if you haven't got the seasons mask on your map, and obviously it's quite difficult to drive around on. It's really slippery because it's snow. You can deactivate this. Go into your menu here, snow mode is on, snow tracks, all the rest of it. Change all your bits and pieces in here. Open this up with Alt S as your overview for your crop growth, but then you can also go through and turn bits and pieces off in here with your snow and all the rest of it. And because of the time of the year, it then disappears again because it resets itself, and you can just use that console command as many times as you want to test it all out. But it does work. We've added the snow, we've got our snow tracks working, even though it did take a while for it to come in, the first layer to come in. Don't know why. Normally it's much quicker than that, but whatever. We got our layers, snow tracks are working, and all the rest of it. So we know that we have our seasons mask in the map and working, so that's fantastic. I don't think there's really much more I can show you on the seasons mask. Again, it's really going to be down to you where you put it. It's a personal sort of thing. I quite like it in my silage clamps, like I said earlier, so I don't get a mixture of silage and snow, because it gets a bit complicated when you're trying to pick up silage. You suddenly get just a small amount of snow in there and it will change the entire bucket or shovel or whatever you want to call it of silage to snow, just like that, instantly. And that gets quite annoying once you've done it 3 or 4 times. Again, with conveyor belts, if you're using conveyor belts in your silage clamps, sometimes it will pick up the snow because it happens to be, you know, a bit close to the edge of the clamp or whatever else, and there's a little bit of snow there. The pickup will see the snow and bam, you've got snow instead of silage straight away, and you've got to start the whole process all over again. It gets really annoying to me after a while, so I tend to put my seasons mask in all of the silage clamps, again with manure, things like that, around my animals, roads, wherever you want to put it, so that it stops the snow coming down. That's really what it's all about, getting a personal preference thing wherever you want it to be. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.